On the topic of the Nevesh Abamis and the Nevesh Shalikis, that the Nevesh Shalikis is Kedusha. The Nevesh Abamis is what we refer to in the Kabbalah and Tanya's Klippus Noiga. So this the Alter Rebbe discusses in great detail in Perik Vov in Tanya, and continues Vov Zayin and Ches, that Hashem is creating everything. And nothing can exist without Hashem's koyach being invested. As we say, "Hamachadish b'tuvi b'chol yom tom ma'asav reishos." With your goodness, you're creating the whole world. The definition of a created world, meaning we say "Bereshus bar Elokim." Hashem created the world. So, if it's created, then it doesn't exist without the creative force being put into it. So there has to be this constant energy of Hashem making something exist. So if that's the case, it's very strange that we don't feel it. The source of life, the source of very existence, we don't feel. We have a sense of self. And that's very much so with our Nevesh Abamis. That we live out of, we just feel ourselves. It's not necessarily that I'm selfish, only about me, and I don't care about anybody else. There is that aspect. But the undergirding of the whole feeling or awareness of a person is, I'm here. It's a very subconscious also. Or I've just got to live. I'm just doing my thing. So where does that feeling come from? Since we're being created all the time, it can't come from it can't not come from Hashem. Because nothing exists without that. So that feeling of self, you can't say, well, of course, Hashem created Gashmias, and so therefore it has to be that way. Well, why? It's also created. So the explanation is, part of the explanation is that Hashem has developed the system and where He's hidden. And so you've got this whole flow of energy. There's nature, which appears to run on its own. And you have Shem Elikim. Bereshus Baro Elikim, Esa Shemayim Esa Arts. The Elikim is Gematria Ha-Teva. And so you've got this whole energy, which is an active creative force that we live in and out of, where Hashem's not felt. That's called Klippa. So you've got an energy where Hashem's revealed, called Kedusha. Everything else, which the Zohar refers to as the other side, Sitra Achra, the other side, that where Kedusha doesn't shine through in, that's called Klippa. So you've got Kedusha is, let's say, a Neshama, Malachim, Torah, Mitzvahs, and that showed up completely in the Beis HaMikdash. It was shining through. That Hashem's existence was real in everything, permeated everything. And then you'll have this whole other flow of energy where He's hidden. And so you have the beginning of self. The first world that feels this self-peace, or there's something else besides only Hashem, is the world of Bria. In the world of Atzilus, even though there's 10 spheres, they're all godly. They all express the Ein Sof, the infiniteness of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem. Even though this is Chochmas Hashem and Chesed of Hashem, the world of Bria starts something that feels self. What's the self in Bria? It's understanding, pure understanding. And the world of Bria understands that Hashem is a creator, but it doesn't permeate it like it does in Atzilus. And until you have in us, which is called the Nevesh Abamis, the enlivening soul. And so there's a whole world, a whole chain of drawing down of life-giving energy. There's that of Kedusha, and there's that of Klippas Noiga. The Nevesh Abamis is drawn from the Klippas Noiga. And so you have the essence of the Nevesh Abamis itself, that life-giving force. And you've got the outer layer of Machshava, Dibba, and Maisa also. Same as we had the Nevesh Elikis. Nevesh Elikis structure is seichel and midas, the person's understanding and their feelings, their attitudes, and how they interact with things outside of them. And you've got the layer of thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, and action is the with what we use to learn Torah, to speak words of Torah, and brachas and davening, and then the action of mitzvahs. So you've got this outer layer called levushe hanefesh, also with the nefesh habamis. The same way as the nefesh elikis lifts up the nefesh elikis to be connected to the rotzon Hashem, the will of Hashem. The nefesh elikis is intrinsically a holy bundle of energy, of life, elokus, godliness, and that it has its limitations because it's a one created entity. And then you've got, as it's lifted up through the Torah mitzvahs, to be connected to the infinite Hashem, the rotzon Hashem. So to the other direction. You have the Nefesh Habamis is this bundle of life giving energy of just living, being alive. And through the Machshava, Dibba, and Maisa of the Nefesh Habamis in worldly matters that are not used out to serve Hashem, it lowers it down into a lower level of klippah. Even if a person, and on this there's two levels. There's when a person would want to use out something gashmias, because just for the enjoyment of it, either in thinking something or speaking or doing, eating, drinking, sleeping, etc., doing something just because he's focused, he enjoys it. So I'm living in the enjoyment of this physical item. So that draws a low down. It goes into a lower level of klippah, into Ra. Because what's he looking at? The same way as Chava. Chava saw the Eitz Hadas, Tova, Ra, says it's pleasant, it's good to eat. So in other words, it's giving a message of this gashmistika thing has its own being, its own life, its own existence, its own stuff, and I'm diving into that. So the person, if he has a chocolate donut, a piece of 7-layer cake, and that's calling my name. And so he's drawn into it and becomes enveloped in the chocolate donut, and that's what he becomes. So what's that got to do with the creation as Hashem's creating the world? Nothing in his mindset. So he's drawn into this lower world, doing it for pleasure. And what if it's not for pleasure? It's just for sustenance. He needs to stay alive. So he'll eat the gashmis. He'll be involved in the gashmis to be alive. So that is also a lower level of the Nefesh Habamis, but not as low down as is doing it for the pleasure. So there's multiple layers. And the Nefesh Habamis can be drawn down lower, or if it's down l'shem shemayim, he's using it to have koyach in order to learn to daven, do a mitzvah, help people. Then they help people get closer to Hashem. Then it elevates it. So we have there's multiple layers. So this is all the discussion is around the machshava dibba ma'isa the levushe hanefesh, which can elevate or draw down even the Nefesh Habamis. This is the focus of our Maimah, that Yerichoi is the gateway to Eretz Yisrael. The Avodah that Yeshua was commanded to spy out Yerichoi, which in our Avodas Hashem is to inspect, be in tune with, do an accounting of our own Machshava de Barmaisa. Where are we holding with all of that? Now, through that, then the more you understand where you're holding, a person could live their life and it's just the norm. You go from one to the next, I'm just living it out. If we stop to think and take this avodah of inspecting, figuring out what are we doing, speaking and thinking, where are we holding with all of that? So it gives you the opportunity then to really, the gateway to a deeper level. What am I feeling? What's my attitude? Can I change all of that to be totally godly? So we said that Avodah is only by the tzaddik. That's the Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to give that to all of Klal Yisrael, and Hashem said that's not the general Avodah of everybody. However, we've been given the opportunity and the obligation, mashbi noisiti tzadik valti rosha, given the shvua of before the person's born, to be a tzaddik, not a rosha. In other words, to work with our inner aspect of our attitude and our feelings, to work with that to develop as much as we can to have the avos Hashem and the yiras Hashem with the inner parts of our heart. How do you get there? You've got to start with the outside. It working from the outside in, through the Maisa, Dibur, Machshava. So through inspecting and working through and examining all the external Levusha HaNefesh, those garments of the Nefesh, then you can reach into a deeper part of the person, of our Ava and Yiras Hashem. So that matches in the that's the gateway to Eretz Yisrael. So Yerichoi would then help conquer the land. When will we the conquer the land means the Midas. When will we ultimately conquer the land? When Mashiach comes. And that's when also we'll get the Keni, Knizi, V'Kadmoni, the nations that are outside those 7 nations that lived in Eretz Yisrael with the coming of Mashiach. That the same way as in the person on his own individual level is able to work by examining and looking at his machshava de b'maisa can reach the deeper level. Our whole avoda in Golus, as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, the Mashiach will come through our avoda in Golus. Our main avoda is in machshava de b'maisa of Torah, and that's why it's so critical that we are aware of this. This helps for Mashiach. This brings Mashiach, where not only the world will be uplifted on the Yerichoi level, but the Eretz Yisrael, the Kedusha of all levels of Kedusha, the 7 nations, and the other 3, Keni, Knizi, V'Kadmoni, representing the aspects of Seichel, of understanding Hashem, that will flow also into the whole world.